Star Trek, the next generation. Your love throughout the nation. You're my favourite show. Once in every episode, you're lucky. You don't have to wait for passes. You just step into the transporter and off you boldly go. Mr. Wall's my favourite person.
We are the Org. Our mission is to assimilate Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and beer. Lots of beer.
Hello, folks.
Hello.
Welcome to bOrgCast 6.21 with Peter and Anne-Marie. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Get well soon to Shane, who's
Is he poorly?
been in the wars. Yes, hope you're feeling better soon, sir. But other than that, I don't think there's any particular news to talk over, so shall we get stuck into our first of tonight's Next Generation episodes?
Yes.
Second Chances.
Double the beardy action.
8 years ago, a transporter mishap created an exact duplicate.
I am Will Riker.
Now, twin officers coexist.
Which of them is real? Both.
But hidden passions could turn them into bitter enemies.
There's no place for you in my away team.
And jealousy threatens to endanger a critical mission.
Playing it safe. Why don't we wait and see who comes out on top?
Let's go! Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Made it sound way more dramatic than it actually was.
It did, didn't it? Yes, but there we go.
The Enterprise is orbiting Navala 4, which researchers were forced to evacuate 8 years ago, and they're trying to retrieve a database. And then my notes say, oh joy, jazz.
Hello, and welcome to Jazz Club, bringing you all that's best in the world of jazz. Nice.
Jazz! Yes, Riker's playing his bone again. Looking very louche in a snazzy purple number.
It's blue.
Well, right, bluey purple, but yeah.
But yeah, it's like, oh, bollocks.
Whereas Troy is definitely wearing purple.
Oh, yes, she looks lovely.
Yes, and Crusher, I'm not so keen on the corduroy top.
No.
But the colours do actually suit
Yeah, they
her,
suit
so, and again, still better than the jumpers, so.
Yes, definitely an improvement on the jumpers. Troy requests Nightbird because he can't play it.
What a meanie she is.
Yeah.
Any request? Yes, that one you can't play, so you can be humiliated. Wahahaha.
But he gets out of it because there's a tippy tap from the bridge.
Yeah.
And basically, Geordi and Data have been able to do stuff to the transporters so that they can beam down sooner than expected. They beam down and somebody is approaching and da-da-da, it's William Riker, but in yellow and tatty.
Yes. A nice touch that he's wearing the old collarless style uniform, which he would have been in when he beamed down, obviously. So, nice continuity.
But I didn't realise that he'd ever been. I always presumed he was always red because he wanted his own command before he was 35.
You'd think, wouldn't you? I mean, it's somebody as ambitious as that, but apparently no, not to begin with. He was in yellow. Go figure. But we get a nice, I'm Will Riker, and so's my wife.
Yeah. So that's the teaser. It's a good teaser.
And I think it's after the teaser, there's a nice shot of Commander Riker circling Will Riker. It's a nice effect.
Yeah. So Dr. Crusher says that their brain scans match their DNA. He's not a clone. And you later find out from a little... I do like the graphic.
The handy diagram does explain it nicely. All the technobabble goes over your head, but at least they've got a picture that Geordie's standing in front of to explain that basically it was a reflection. And whilst our Riker was beamed aboard the Enterprise, the reflection meant there was another Riker on the planet. So. Yeah. Nice. I mean, it's a great idea, I think. Nice way of doing it.
Yeah. And then Deanna says that she'll go and speak to Lieutenant Riker because he's got the local expertise, so they can try and retrieve this database. The moment she walks in, Lieutenant Riker picks her up and snogs her, and she's a bit...
Yeah, so much for her never kissing him with a beard.
Yeah, but she did in season 3 when he had a beard.
Yeah,
when they were
she's
in
done
that
it several
garden
times,
thing and the
hasn't she?
Ferengi thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just
Menage a Troy.
proves that it just proves that insurrection is
It's a pile of poo.
wank.
Yes, and they kissed in a recent episode as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so.
What a pile of wank, eh? Your insurrection is.
Yeah, it's a crusty jizz tissue.
Oh, but it is.
Yeah, you not disagree with me.
I've got to rewatch it actually because I've been rereading that thing that Andy sent. Fade In. That's very interesting reading about the writing of the story and how it got so ballsed up, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, Deanna's a bit, ugh. So they go to sit down, and no, he cannot sit down properly.
Well, it's the same Riker, effectively, so not surprising.
But this is obviously something he's been doing for a long time. Although if it's caused by enormous swinging bollocks, I suppose they've both got enormous swinging bollocks. So yeah. I was watching deliberately to see whether that was the case, and no, he fails at sitting down, I'm afraid. But when they're having this conversation about how the original Riker, they were supposed to meet after he got the Potemkin, they're supposed to meet 6 weeks later on Risa, and then he didn't come. And when Deanna's first talking, she seems quite harsh with him.
Uh-huh.
And later on, you think that's her sort of putting up walls and defences. But at the time, she does seem to be quite hard on him, I thought, anyway.
When she leaves the room, there's this massive hangdog expression on his face.
There
like,
is,
"Aw."
yeah. Like, oh. Because she's like, we made a decision, our feelings changed. Mm-hmm. It's not going anywhere, mate. Mm-hmm. And then they're going on the away mission, and he just gets there in time to beam down, and Amanda Riker is not happy. And then there's a lieutenant who's an ensign, which is confusing.
Yeah, she's referred to by Riker as being a lieutenant, but actually, according to Memory Alpha anyway, she's an ensign, Palmer. Didn't get to see her pips to count them, so I couldn't say for sure. But anyway, she's transporter chief for this episode is played by real-life astronaut Dr. Mae Jameson, who was the first woman of colour in space.
Wow.
And this was all arranged by LeVar Burton. This is the first episode he directed, and he got her in especially. So it's nice. He also invited Nichelle Nichols to come on set and meet her.
Oh, that's lovely.
Like many people, Nichelle Nichols had inspired Dr. May, so it's quite impressive, really.
Yeah. And then the two Rikers... One's underneath a console and one's on top. And there's an interesting conversation between them about their dad.
Yes, Icarus Factor is referenced.
Yeah.
Of course. There's been a sort of making peace between them.
Ish.
Not a great episode, that, of course.
No, it isn't. But I did find it an interesting conversation that they had about Riker turning down his first command. And then you cut to Deanna, who has a big dish of manky apples. Why does she have a big dish of manky apples?
I don't know. Maybe she likes her fruit.
But they're all manky. Sorry.
It's perhaps a foretaste of the next episode, which...
Oh, is that a big dish of manky apples?
Yeah, a very big dish of manky fruit in the next story. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe she's got a big dish of road apples.
Oh!
Sorry.
At least you know what that is now.
Yeah, I learned it. I didn't learn. Once I'd sobered up anyway.
From the Black Dog Educational Programme. Yeah.
And then she's picking up there's a flower and these little rhymes to picking up other things. But one of them is so unfortunate. It says, it pulses unendingly throughout the night. And we both went, Fanar!
Do you not find this slightly childish? I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not the most romantic of people, so perhaps I'm not the one to be judging this. But it seems like a really sort of childish thing to be doing, basically. Setting a little trail of notes around the Enterprise. One of them is attached to the warp core, and sort of Geordi gives her a look when she takes it off, and I'm thinking, so why did you leave a note attached to the warp core for so long? I mean, there must be other people in engineering who must have noticed it, and they just left it there? What bizarre.
Yeah, but he had to write about the pulsing, didn't he?
Yeah,
you see, the only
pulsing,
thing that pulsed was the warp core, you see.
Yeah. Slightly naff, but there we are.
I know, for example, one of my cousins would find that sweet. I would just find it a bit weird.
Yeah.
Personally. But knowing that my cousin would find it sweet, then it's theoretically possible that the character of Troy would find it sweet.
Okay, so it's down to taste, this one. Fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway, she ends up to 10 forward. See, I wouldn't need an invitation. Oh, no. I was going to say I wouldn't need an invitation to go into 10 forward because it's a pub, except it isn't. It doesn't say real alcohol. So actually, probably I would, actually, to be fair.
When she gets to 10 forward and opens the big box of delight, was it just me? I thought what she brought out was a big slab of chocolate. I'm thinking, bloody hell, that's a lot of chocolate.
Oh, I thought it was chocolate.
And then it turns out to be a slab, literally, of metal or something that he's carved a picture onto.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I was expecting chocolate.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, it's lovely. And it reminded me of some really, really shitty tile things. I was never entirely sure what they were. Were they mats or coasters? Because they were the wrong size to be either. That my parents had of a drawing that looked very similar, but it was birds and it was shite in the 1970s. And I'm afraid my brain just went to a, shite 1970s sort of tableware place.
Right, okay.
Sorry. So I didn't find it a romantic, pretty, lovely present at all.
Well, I mean, obviously the thought behind it is nice. He's obviously spent a long time on it, and it's something that's associated with both of them, and so it's romantic from that. I mean, even if artistically it's not that impressive, what it represents clearly is nice.
I suppose, but I'm afraid I just looked at it and thought, what a load of shit. Has lacklustre Art Minbari changed shows?
I don't know.
And then you've got Crusher and Troy doing their Mac bar or whatever it is.
Mokbara, yes. And the connection between it and Tai Chi is confirmed because Thomas goes, that looks a lot like Tai Chi. It's like, no shit, because Dave had already told us that they'd ripped off Tai Chi for it.
Yeah.
We also get that scene with Picard telling Riker that he's got to go with Thomas's plan.
Yeah.
Which seems a bit harsh. It does feel like Picard's undermining Riker slightly. It doesn't make any sort of mention of that. Like, I know he shouldn't have done, but he came to me with his plan and it sounds good, or anything, or I know it's your, it should be your call. But I mean, just as I say, it seems rather unfair.
But doesn't he do that with Shelby?
Yeah, exactly same thing again, and I put my back up at that time as well. So it's like you're not the most supportive captain at times,
Sometimes, no, this is true actually. You have a conversation between Commander Riker and Troy where she's like feeling awkward because after the whole Mokbra thing, where he comes in and they end up snogging, which clearly leads to something else.
Yes,
he's like, that look in your eyes, you used to have it for me. And she's talked about how upset she was. Well, he knows how upset she was when they sort of split up, if you see what I mean. And he's like, I don't want you to get hurt again. And she's kind of like, thank you, but you're not the same person, except, well, actually they are. Then there's poker.
Boo!
And there's
boring.
Some snide remarks. It goes on for much longer than I thought it would.
Yeah, this is too long a scene, and it's a very laboured way of, oh, look, they're actually very different, aren't they? Boring.
Yeah.
They could have found a more interesting way of showing us that, not bloody poker.
Yep.
No, I would say that the last line is actually quite a good one, having dissed it big time, but that thing about you always had the better hand obviously fits quite nice with poker.
Yes, it does, that's true. But makes you wonder whether they came up with a line and then wrote the scene to fit it.
Yes, indeed.
And then it's on the away mission, and you have Data turning round to Worf.
Lieutenant, I am curious about something. If you met a double of yourself, would you have difficulty interacting with him?
I think so.
Why?
I am not easy to get along with.
Yeah, that's a funny bit.
I like it.
The look on Worf's face.
Yeah. And then you have the mission, which is overly dramatic and...
It's okay. It gets a bit Generations, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
When that platform collapses and you think,
Yeah.
oh, blimey, there should be Kirk on there.
Yeah, I thought that at the time watching it. But anyway, everything goes okay, and Thomas Riker he's decided he's going to call himself Thomas to distinguish himself, and he's going on a command on the Gandhi. So he is going to do what the other Riker did and leave Troy for his career.
Yes. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Poor Troy. And you want to give Troy a hug.
But, I mean, to be fair, she does make it quite clear she can kind of see this coming all the way, can't she? So, yeah. Riker gives himself a bone.
Snarl.
Which is a nice scene. It's nice that they're obviously addressing the Troy-Riker relationship in the past. Finally, it's taken them 6 bloody seasons, but finally they're addressing it.
Yeah.
It's like they feel it doesn't matter too much now, and we can explore the more interesting bits of these characters. So and you can tell that Frakes and Curtis are enjoying acting this.
Yes.
In actual fact, Curtis said that she much preferred the Thomas Riker rather than the Will Riker.
Yeah.
And they actually considered killing off Commander Riker in that mission.
Really?
And ending up with Thomas, who would then have a relationship with Troy. And Data would be promoted to first officer, which would have been a really, really ballsy thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame they didn't, because Riker's okay, but he's not that interesting a character.
No.
And particularly the fact he's constantly been, turning down promotions. Whereas to have a much more, I know he's not younger, but he seems younger, doesn't he? And more ambitious.
Yeah.
Thomas Riker would have been a lot more interesting, I can't help feeling. But hey, they weren't into taking risks on Next Generation, were they? So.
No, they'd have done it on DS9.
The much more boring way to do it, of course, would have been to kill Thomas Riker off. But they decided actually to go for a better move than that, but not as good as killing off Commander Riker, and that's have them both survive.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting thing, I suppose, and it does mean, of course, Thomas returns a bit later on in Deep Space Nine.
Yes, which is cool, but if they'd done that original idea, that would have been awesome.
Oh, that would have been really awesome,
It really would have been.
And I'm sure Frakes would have loved doing that, actually.
Yeah.
And if they'd made this the last episode of the season, because it nearly is. I mean, what a way to end the season, on a cliffhanger, with a literal cliffhanger with Riker dangling, and then, rather than Best of Both Worlds where they rescue Picard, then part 2, and they kill off Commander Riker.
Yeah.
And go, whoa! And that would have given season 7 such a more interesting edge. I mean,
you wouldn't have had to have that bloody awful Scottish ghost shagging candle bollocks, would you?
Possibly not. They would certainly have had more interesting things to do than that one, definitely.
Yeah.
Phantasms.
Is that what it's called? I thought it was Sub Rosa.
Oh, you're right. It's Sub Rosa. I'm mixing the episode names. So season 7
I think of it as Sub Rosa because it's subpar.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Season 7 is the one I'm least familiar with, so it's going to get quite interesting when we transfer to season 7, because I haven't watched it as much, because I've never enjoyed it as much as the other seasons. So overall, I thought it was a good episode. Some not so good bits about it, but generally very entertaining.
I thought it was a good episode, but the trailer makes it seem very actiony, and I found
they
it more...
do that. I mean, they do that with even the most boring of episodes.
That's
They manage
true.
to make it sound like there's a punch-up every 5 seconds, but, you've
I
just
found-
got to realise that's the way they sell these things.
True, but I found it emotionally interesting.
Yes, definitely. And rewarding.
Yeah, and I liked it. It was a good episode. Interestingly, though, it was Thomas Riker who had the better hair. They did it so they had slightly different haircuts. Yeah, Thomas Riker looked better.
Oh, right. There we are.
He was more sexy.
Oh dear. Right, shall we find out what other people think?
Yes.
Okay, so we've heard from the Mark. And he has this to say. Second Chances or the Clone Saga Blues. Love that transporter. It's just an amazing piece of equipment. It can cure illnesses, regenerate limbs, keep people alive for centuries, and even duplicate a person by accident. To be fair, they do make it clear this is like a 1 in a billion zillion chance, but there we are. As we near the end of Year 6 for Next Generation, we're the first of 2 parallels to this season's tapestry. So that was because Picard was revisiting his past.
And another chance at the past. Had a second chance.
Right. Yeah, I suppose he's getting a second chance with Troy, isn't he? But
yeah.
It's not like he's gone back in the past. He's still been living all this time. I mean, it's not a rewind, is it?
No, but it's similar.
Yeah, I must admit, it didn't hit me as a similarity, but there we are. It's another high concept to be sure, but it's a brilliant one, and it's used to great effect to explore the past and present of Riker's character, better than nearly all Next Generation episodes that have ever centred on him. Yeah,
that's
agree
true.
with that.
Yeah.
While this 8 years alone Riker seems a little too well adjusted, a little too well fed, if nothing else. Yes.
Actually, I thought that.
What's he been surviving on all this time?
Yep.
Most crucially is the question of Riker and Troy. If you look at the 6 years of Next Generation's run to this point, you realise that a lot was implied and hinted about Riker and Troy and their relationship before they were both assigned to the Enterprise. Indeed, the most concrete dialogue might actually have been in our Kazra Farpoint, regrettably. But Second Chances finally takes a look at these two people and acknowledges they once had an important and real relationship, and uses that to tell the rare romantic story of Next Generation that actually truly works. Very true. Yeah.
Yep.
Precisely because it has a real history and real stakes and is believable, rather than being concocted in a few hours or days and banished to the realm of immediately irrelevant like every one of the one-off romances.
Yep.
Watching the series back when I was in my teens, one of the biggest bugs was seeing the young, dashing Riker sitting around on the bridge while old man Picard went on one swashbuckling adventure after another. Now I'm older, Picard doesn't seem quite so ridiculous, but the use of Riker was still disappointing. This episode is one of the few where we get to see a Riker out of Picard's shadow. Here, after 8 years alone, or facing Locutus, or as an admiral in the future, he's a total badass compared to the Will who hangs around being noble about not being in love with Zimzadi and passes up command after command so he can keep playing second banana to Picard. Given the need Starfleet has, what the hell is he still doing there along with any other senior officer on that ship? I know it's a TV show. Given it's a TV show, his story definitely hit a wall at Best of Both Worlds. Arguably, yeah. He just saved the entire Federation, so what is he going to do next? Disappear back into obscurity by remaining a first officer. I guess he's entitled to it if that's what he really wants. But narrative-wise, it's a disaster. He doesn't have a purpose anymore. His character is practically retired. We know he's capable of doing more than this, but yet he chooses not to. So what's the use of watching him? It may have worked if the writers focused on his reasons for staying on the Enterprise, putting down roots, but they ran away from that too. I respect the decision by the writers not to make the obvious move of killing Thomas Riker and instead having him transferred to another ship to continue his life. Yep.
Yeah.
Apparently the writers toyed with the idea of having William Riker die or leave to be a captain and have Thomas Riker taking his place for the rest of the series. It would definitely been a gutsy move. I do wonder what Next Generation would look like if it was started now with tighter plots and made for DVD continuity of today's TV shows. So his career is at a standstill and his social life is in stasis, so it's hard to write stories about him. Maybe that's why he gets the everyman stories that he just reacts to stuff rather than it being about him. Frame of Mind and Schisms are perfect examples. He's such a bland persona at this point that there's nothing else for him. There's no build-up on his ambition anymore, and there's no longer much emphasis on his ability to think on his feet and improvise. Unfortunately, the only thing left is to contrast with Picard, a la Kirk and Spock, but since Picard's character set is being calm, rational and highly competent, that just means Riker becomes loud and dumb and emotional.
Yep.
Hence his constant yelling and stomping around and failing to solve anything. I know some people have said that the problem is that he no longer has the core duty of leading away teams, but is that a cause or an effect of his devolution?
I don't know.
Yeah, if Picard is becoming more exciting to the audience and becoming a more interesting character, then it becomes easier for the writers to write about Picard, who wants to write for a nobody. But at least he's not treated as bad as Chakotay.
Yeah.
Yes, compared to him, he's a really good character.
Yeah. Or poor... No, one I feel sorry for is Ensign Kim, who doesn't get promoted at all the entire time. I do think that it doesn't work. I know that the reason Riker stays is because it's a TV show, and he's one of the main characters. But it doesn't make sense in universe that he stays.
No, they should have come up with a better reason for him to stay.
Because he ought to feel responsible. Yeah, because it's all about the Federation doesn't have money anymore. It's all about bettering yourself. He ought to feel responsible that he should be in command of a ship.
Yeah, well, he's always said that's what he's felt called to do. So why isn't he following that calling? It doesn't follow,
doesn't
does
work.
It?
No.
So yeah, it is a bit odd. And they should have given him a better reason for staying, other than the fact that he just liked it there. It's not great. Oh, there we are. We also heard from Dominica.
Oh, hello, Dominica. She says, hello. And Happy New Year to both of you and all the listeners. Happy New Year to you too. Second chances. I am really starting to feel sorry for people from the future. No fun activities. Television and Xbox doesn't exist. iPads are only used for jobs. And not even a good radio show or podcast to listen to. Just play poker. Or listen to your colleagues when they play music or pretend to be an actor. And this year after year after year. I would be so bored that I would die.
There's the holodeck. Remember, there's the holodeck.
I find it a little strange that even though Riker 2 was in a completely different place, he got exactly the same beard as Riker 1. Good that they have, in any case, different colours on their uniforms so you could see the difference between the two of them. Another strange thing is that Riker 2 wasn't given more psychological help to help manage several years without contact with other people.
Yeah, and he does adjust very quickly, doesn't he?
Yeah. I can imagine that in the future you can quickly fix any medical problems, but psychological? I'm not going to comment on the love story in this. In conclusion, this was not so exciting.
Oh, that's a shame. I thought the love bit of it was quite nice, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we also heard from Commander Shepard on the old Twitters. And he says, second chances is a bit of a wasted opportunity. Nothing happens. Tom Riker's Deep Space Nine appearance is much more interesting. Yes, I certainly agree with the latter bit. It's not. I wouldn't say that nothing happens, but I think it would have been a lot more disappointing had they killed Tom Riker off. That would have been the really cheap nothing happens answer. But yes, okay. All right, let's have a listen to the MP3 feedback, shall we? And we start with Purry.
Hello and Happy New Year, Orgs. Purry here to talk about Second Chances. I actually quite enjoyed this. Obviously, anyone who's seen this knows the episode as the one with Thomas Riker, or where Thomas Riker gets introduced. Plot is basic. Riker, they beam down to a planet to find that a transported duplicate of Riker has been on the planet for, I think they said 8 years, and they've only got a certain amount of time on the planet before they can't beam off it again for another 8 years. And plot things happen which are, well, they have to retrieve a database, and I had a wee gripe with that, and really how important is this data? Because I don't think they really built that up enough apart from saying it's very important. But anyway, basically the bulk of the plot is Riker kind of coming to terms with the ideas of someone, well, himself basically criticising his last 8 years of life decisions and potentially living out his life. The Thomas Riker, I'll just call him Thomas Riker, although he only gets the name at the end, it does try to rekindle the relationship with Deanna. And like I say, the episode is maybe not exciting, and it's kind of just sort of, functioning to explore the idea rather than doing anything with it. They just sort of meet up, don't get on, and then eventually Thomas Riker naffs off. And with that you could criticise the episode because yes, not much happens, and I think it did drag a little. I wouldn't say it dragged, but I was noticing odd things, like in the poker game, whose room were they in? Because Riker's trombone was there, but Thomas Riker turned up at the door. Now, was he turning up to see Will Riker, or was that Deanna's quarters, and basically someone had said, poker at your place, and she said, I'm going out, and they said, yeah, poker at your place. Okay, but don't let Riker take his trombone. That was one of the scenes I liked, actually. This will be a bit random, but right at the beginning, and Troy is trolling Riker when he's playing his trombone, deciding to request the song that he can't finish, which is just a wee bit harsh. Like I say, it's I know you fuck up this song every time and I'm going to ask you to play it. It also reminded me of a thing that comes up when you're playing Guitar Hero, I think because the song is called Nightbird. There's a slogan that comes up in Guitar Hero in one of the loading screens saying they're not asking you to play, they don't really want you to play Freebird, they're just heckling you. And that made me sort of think, well, they don't want you to play Nightbird, she's just heckling you. So that was, and I couldn't help but remember what I think it was Drew and Tracy said, that they must be bored shitless. Oh god, a jazz recital in 10 forward, how fun. And yes, indeed, Riker gets called away from it for this mission. And yeah, so as I say, I think the criticism of the episode is it doesn't really do anything during the episode aside from examine the plot, but on the other hand it does actually try to examine this concept of, the road less travelled and seeing an alternative version of yourself and that sort of thing. And I think it deals with it quite well. I like the way Thomas Riker is a little bit different. Actually, I think Jonathan Frakes does a very good job of playing them differently. He does seem less mature than Riker, for all that he's been living for 8 years. He's been living alone, and I think that does show through, actually. So kudos to Jonathan Frakes for this one, quite frankly, because I think he did a very good job on it. So yeah, again, it's not my favourite episode. It's arguably a Trek curio, because they do create this whole new character, and indeed that surprised me as well in the episode that he didn't die at the end, because that's usually the way these things go. Have the road less travelled thing, and then the duplicate will sacrifice himself at the end in a noble way, and we'll all be back to normal. And in this one, at least you do have the concept that there's this whole other, basically Riker's twin brother running around now, and there will no doubt be some people in Starfleet who think his parents are really weird because they called one of their children William Thomas Riker and the other one Thomas William. So yeah, like I say, not bad. It's probably not the greatest, but it does have curiosity value, and I think it does quite a good job with the concept for all I think it could do with a bit more actual moving story. But I will be back shortly to talk about Timescapes. Until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Troy trolling Riker, yes.
Yes.
And yes, it was supposed to be Riker's room, because Thomas turns up and says, I thought I'd find you alone. He's surprised to see Worf and Data there, so yeah, that kind of is explained.
I do like the idea that they were having a conversation. You've got a poker in your room, or poker in mine.
Okay.
Sorry, I am smoking.
All the way through this, both times I watched, I'm thinking, this is reminding me of something, It's only for some reason when Puri was talking, it suddenly clicked in my head where I'd come across this concept before. Because this doesn't remind me of that one with Tapestry. This reminds me of a Red Dwarf episode called Me Too, where there's two rimmers and he doesn't get on with himself. And that was clicking in my head. Of course, Me Too is actually a much better episode in this because it's Rimmer.
Yeah.
And the fact that Rimmer doesn't get on with himself in the way is no great surprise, but it's really fun watching it happen. So, but somebody else who obviously didn't enjoy it as much as us, so dear.
Oh.
Never mind.
Oh dear.
Let's find out what Drew and Tracy made of this one.
This is our feedback for Second Chances.
So, 10 Forward was the place to be.
It was.
Episode,
another jazz gig that
well,
they're doing. Yeah.
The crew looked sassy. The only downside was the jazz. What is it with jazz in space? Troy must have been in heaven having two Rikers to play with. No wonder Worf had the ump. It's another you! Because Worf is like a little bit of a...
Double the competition.
He had a little bit of a thing for Troy, didn't he? No, there's two Rikers. It was weird at the beginning when they just seemed all too natural talking to each other when they were talking about like their dad and stuff like that, and they it seemed like two brothers talking, and that seemed a really comfortable, natural conversation, and then they just spiraled into like being really arsey, and the contempt they had for each other was, you know, again very similar to how brothers react, I guess, if they're in competition, but just a side to Riker we don't normally see, and it was a bit weird. Not sure I liked it.
We liked it when Riker turned his charm factor, no, Thomas Riker, up to warp factor 9 with the little messages. That was good, wasn't it?
That's a bit slimy, but yeah.
That's good.
It was good, yeah, I liked it. So there's another episode with a moral message where, you know, they absolutely hate each other and they want to kill each other, and the contempt they show, and then there's an accident and then they have to like save each other, and then they become bestest friends.
I don't know if they was bestest friends.
Well, they were at the end. He gave him his trombone.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big thing.
I know, and you know what I thought when he come in and they started playing poker together, I was like, oh my god! I think there's only one game that would be more argumentative than playing poker, and that'd be Monopoly, wouldn't it?
I'd say Snap myself, but you know, I quite liked the episode. Yeah, it was interesting.
I really enjoyed this actually. It's not the kind of episode you think would be very enjoyable, you know, very talky and that, but I really like it. I think it's good.
No, it was good. I quite liked it. It was, you know, very Riker focused and Troy focused. You know, very little Geordie, very little Data, no Picard really, apart from like one or two tiny little scenes. But it was alright.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. I don't know why, but it's great. I just think the acting's good. It's really interesting stuff. You could spend a week talking about implications of transporter technology and doppelgangers and that. It's great stuff.
Yeah, liked it. Next one. Thank you.
Bye.
Yay, they liked it. And you're right, the acting is one of the things that sells this episode, definitely. They're clearly having fun with these characters.
Marina Sirtis is really good as well when they're having their second conversation. Well, she's been sort of a bit standoffish and cold with Thomas Riker the first time. When they're having that second conversation and she's trying to fight back the tears, and you know, it's really moving and sweet, and I like it.
The idea of the two Rikers sitting down and arguing over who's going to play the boot in Monopoly is...
Oh, yes.
But I always get to play the boot. You can't buy Pall Mall, that's one of mine. Yeah, I don't know, I would much prefer it if they played Monopoly rather than poker. Although it would be a bit ironic considering they have no money in the future. But I suppose the same could be said for poker, really.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
Yes, it is. Well, it's Monopoly money, isn't it? So it's the equivalent of poker chips, I suppose.
Right, okay. We've also had some feedback from our good mate, Catbus Matt.
Hello, Catbus Matt.
Hooray! Let's hear what he made of this.
Hello, lovely Orgses. It's the artist perpetually known as Catbus Matt here with some feedback for Second Chances, aka Past Riker's a Dick. Yeah, needless to say, I didn't particularly enjoy this episode. Now, a lot of these, in fact most of these, I haven't actually seen since they were first broadcast, which I may have mentioned on previous feedback. So for me, it really is a revisitation. I remember liking this episode as a kid. You know, I mean, what's not to like? Two Rikers. Well, as it turns out, what's not to like is two Rikers. I think what happened, or my theory, is that somebody came up with this great idea of having an episode in which a transporter duplicate of Riker, frozen in time from the moment that he was put in the transporter beam, turns up to the Enterprise, forcing Riker to confront his past self because no time has passed in between for this duplicate Riker. And, you know, it's a bit of soul searching and we can do the Troy stuff and blah, blah, blah. The problem is, of course, is that Jonathan Frakes has aged. So how do we get around that? I know, says somebody in the writer's room. What we'll do is we'll have him trapped on a planet for the intervening 8 years. That way he's aged at the normal rate. He's got a beard, so no shaving for Frakesy poo. And it'll all be fine, but he'll still be the same guy. Except he wouldn't be the same guy. He wouldn't be the same guy. And this is it. They're trying to portray past Riker as the guy that Riker was 8 years ago. That's the concept. But the thing is, he's been on a planet for 8 years, fighting for survival. He's not going to be exactly the same person as before he left. And they do touch upon this. There's a couple of throwaway lines about, the whole time I was down there, I've had a lot of time to think. Except clearly you haven't, because at the end of the episode, you do exactly what, original Riker, original flavour, red flavour Riker did. You know, you take your career over Troy. And it's really tragic for her. And actually, I'll give Marina Sirtis props for the scene she's in. I'm normally not a fan of the character of Troy, but actually she does really well here, exploring all of that. Although I do think she's a bit thick. I mean, seriously. Well, it didn't work out with original Flavour Riker. Maybe the lemon flavour will be better. Maybe, but maybe not. Because this one's really highly damaged. What is it with you and damaged people as well, Troy? I mean, really, you seem to be really attracted to people that are broken inside, as Lemon Riker clearly is. But yeah, no, I'm sorry, there's no way that Lemon Riker is going to be exactly the same person as he was 8 years ago, which is, despite a couple of throwaway lines, what they're getting at. He's going to have changed, you know, and yeah, I'm sorry. And also somebody who at the end of the episode is immediately back like that to being career focused and taking opportunities is not going to be late to shifts and back chatting his superior officer. Yes, I know that he's supposed to be clashing with himself, but then again, himself, isn't this the person that he's always wanted to be? Commander Riker, isn't that the person that he's wanted to be? The whole thing is a bit messy for me, basically. It's really inconsistent. And they just seem to differentiate past Riker by making him a complete and utter tool. Who, incidentally, is also a little bit rapey. I'm sorry, but he is. Deanna, I still love you. Yeah, well, for me, 8 years has passed. Well, actually, for him, 8 years has passed as well. But we'll gloss over that, because that's cocking up the script. But, you know, for me, 8 years has passed, and I'm not in love with you anymore. And she's really firm about that. She's actually quite cold. And what does he say upon leaving? Like, without even any thinking time in between. Oh, I know that you've said you're not interested, but I still love you. And basically, you will be mine. Oh, yes, you will be mine. Oh, yeah, that's not creepy or ominous at all. I mean, Jesus, at this point, I'd be getting a restraining order. Yeah, didn't enjoy the episode. It's really, really irritating. It's a mediocre idea, really poorly executed. And there's very little about the episode that interests me, apart from strawberry flavoured Riker, red flavoured Riker, who actually comes across as really reasonable in this. I don't know whether this is just in comparison to the dickishness of Lemon Flavour Riker, but no, Jonathan Frakes does a really good job, and I really like the character of Strawberry Riker in this episode. So, you know, that's something. But apart from that, no, I'm sorry. Bilge. Didn't like it. Do not like. Roll on the next episode. Let's hope it's better. And I will catch you again in a few minutes with my feedback for that. Love you, bye!
Yeah, so what you're saying is Strawberry Riker forever. Strawberry and Lemon Riker. Brilliant. Oh dear. Oh, sorry you didn't enjoy it as much as we did. I must admit, I didn't find Lemon Flavour rapey. I mean, he's like basically just emotionally damaged because he says, okay, you might have moved on, but basically I've been holding the candle for you for 8 years. Unsurprisingly, I'm still in love with you. But he doesn't. There's no sort of sense of, you know, he's going to force himself on her or anything like that, and he doesn't.
No,
so
no.
I think that's slightly unfair on him. But I think there's definitely something in Troy being attracted to broken people, as we've found. Yeah, and also he's late because he's not used to following orders or indeed having anybody around at all, so he's bound to be not used to following any patterns or anything because he's been his own boss
He's
for
not
ages.
used to setting an alarm, see?
Yes. And I think it's not that he wanted to be Commander Riker, he wanted to be Captain Riker by this point. So he's a bit knocked at Strawberry Flavour for not being a captain. Yeah. It's the reason why there's that antagonism. There are a few lines that sort of say, where he's basically, that bit when he's talking about his dad, and he said, what did Dad say? And Strawberry Flavour says, oh, well, he was surprised I turned the captaincy down. And Lemon says, well, yeah, I'm with him, basically. So basically, he's frustrated with Strawberry because he's not carried on as ambitious as Lemon has remained.
Sorry, I just find that such a hysterical sentence.
It's like the Munch Bunch, isn't it? Next generation Munch Bunch.
The Munch Bunch have run away. The Munch Bunch are here to stay. The Munch Bunch have found a home with a garden
I'm glad nobody was blue, because is that blueberry flavour? I don't know.
Oh, dear. The only thing I would say is that in terms of making the same mistakes, when Thomas Riker says he's going to leave, I find it interesting that when he's with Troy, he says he would stay on the Enterprise, which is where Troy is at home, if it wasn't for the fact that the other
Strawberry
Riker
flavour's there, yeah. So
it's not quite him making the same decision, actually. No. If Strawberry Flavour didn't exist...
Yeah, he'd probably stay on the Enterprise quite happily.
He said he would stay on the Enterprise to be with Troy. So.
Well, he says that. I mean, he'd be frustrated if he wasn't able to continue, because, I mean, he'd have to have a transfer of some sort if he was going to be anything other than her husband, basically. So, anyway, he goes off on the Gandhi, doesn't he? So there you are. Right, and we also heard from Wayne Peters as well.
Hello, Ogs. Taking advantage of a brief break in the rain here to take Merlin for a walk and talk a bit about second chances. Not much to say about this one, really. It was an interesting, actually quite scary idea. The idea that, the fiddly bongs could reverse the polarity of the diddly doos and you'd end up with two of you is quite a scary thought. I know they did something similar in the classic series with Evil Kirk and Scaredy Kirk. But this one I thought was just handled really boringly. I think my biggest problem with it is this idea that you spend 8 years marooned on a planet and when you're finally discovered, you're told, sorry mate, you're not Will Riker anymore, and the woman you've been waiting desperately to see for 8 years, well, all that's over now. And he just seems fine with it. And I think that would break someone completely. So it was kind of like, here's an amazing idea that we really don't have the time to explore properly. And anyway, here's some jazz and some poker. And I was losing the will to live, to be honest. I know Tom Riker comes back. I think he comes back in DS9 later on, doesn't he? I hope that's not too much of a spoiler. And I imagine he pops up in novels and stuff, but yeah, just not very interesting, so wasn't so keen on this one. Anyways, back in a bit to talk to you about the next episode. Bye now.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. It should have been a more traumatic experience for Lemon Flavour, shouldn't it? There should have been more of a sense of him having to adjust, and rather than just being late, and finding it hard to be around people and stuff. So yeah, I agree with that. And it probably would have made for a slightly more interesting episode, but I still kind of liked it, I must admit. And the focus was obviously more on just exploring that Riker-Troy relationship, which up till now they've just not bothered looking into. And as much as the actors have tried to put in as much as they can, it's been something that basically was mentioned in Encounter at Farpoint and then very rarely onwards. But you're right, it is quite a scary idea of being sort of copied and how would you react to yourself. And again, it's sort of that sort of Me Too idea of would you actually get on with yourself? Would you find yourself good company?
No.
So it's quite good.
No. I'd hit myself.
Yeah, no.
I'd have a fight with myself and lamp myself.
So shall we move on to Timescape? Which is probably the least memorable episode ever. I really struggled to remember. Like literally, I just looked it up and then 5 minutes later I forgot the episode name. So hopefully that won't happen too often. But there we go.
Okay.
Time suddenly comes to a dead stop.
My God.
Leaving the Enterprise frozen in the middle of a devastating attack.
Dr. Crusher has been hit by a disruptor blast at point-blank range.
Now, a race begins to rescue the past.
The explosion has already occurred.
Before an enemy awakes. As the clock ticks toward annihilation. Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay, exciting stuff.
Yes.
Riker is in sickbay recovering from an attack by Spot. It turns out Data, Geordi, Troy and the captain are away on a conference. For a change, it won't be them being scrobbled by the Romulans.
I did write in my notes, been attending conference. Uh-oh.
Crusher volunteers to take over the Spot sitting, and the commander retrieves a phaser that just seems to have been just lying around.
It looked like it was in a dish, like the sort of dish you put your keys in so you don't lose them.
It's just like, they leave phasers lying around all the time in Next Gen for some reason.
It's like, there's your keys and, maybe there's your phone and then there's your phaser in a dish by the door.
Well, that's just what you're going to leave lying around in sickbay, isn't it? A phaser.
Yeah.
Weird. Anyway, the Enterprise receives an SOS from a Romulan warbird and heads off to investigate. It's nice to see Riker taking some decisive action. For a change, he's kind of in command. Hooray!
Although it is interesting that he goes, how long till we rendezvous with Picard? Which makes me think, Can I put off making this decision?
Well, he doesn't. So
no, it's fine, but yeah.
So aboard the runabout, which is where they all are, which is quite interesting. Find out later on, you can see the registry number on it, and it's actually the Rio Grande.
Oh, that's our car.
Yes, it is. I named my car after this runabout. But quite what they're doing with Deep Space Nine runabout is not explained, but clearly they're just reusing footage.
Well, no, because they complain about the runabouts in DS9 later on. We haven't got to that yet, so maybe they got it second hand, and that's why they're not so reliable, and they all end up...
Data leaves the cockpit and enters the next generation addition to the runabout set. Okay, so obviously they're using the cockpit set from Deep Space Nine, but it was supposed to be helping Deep Space Nine out. They added the rest of the runabout set, which turns out to be, because it's next generation, a fucking conference room. Surprise, surprise, Deep Space Nine never uses that set, because they don't waste time sitting around conference tables jibber-jabbering. So next generation.
With a bowl of fruit.
With a bowl of fruit.
And I know the bowl of fruit.
I told you it was going to pay off.
I know the bowl of fruit has a role to play, but still, they've got replicators. You don't need a bowl of fucking fruit.
As it is, we do have some amusing impressions of conference speakers by Troy and Picard.
But then it's like, this is supposedly the lovely, wonderful federation where everybody betters themselves. And it sounds like the conference was a massive pile of wank.
Yeah, well, except for Geordie, whose speaker was all right, apparently. But anyway.
He's probably just fucking glad he wasn't kidnapped by Romulans.
He probably is, yes. Then everybody but Troy freezes, which is an intriguing teaser. Although it does take too long to get there. I could have done with a little less of the jibber-jabber, but, that's next generation for you. Anyway, after the teaser, they can find nothing to back up Troy's experience, and she does a bit of plexing, which is a nice
I noticed that.
callback to Realm of Fear.
It says in my notes, plexing, so I did that.
Then it's Troy's turn to freeze. This time, Geordie's tricorder shows that time has stopped 3 minutes for Troy. They decide to speed to their rendezvous point with the Enterprise, but then they experience an engine failure in one of the nacelles, which is caused by it apparently running for 47 days longer than the rest of the ship.
Which is a bit weird.
Yes. The captain reaches out to that bowl of fruit, which has gone all mouldy, only to experience agonising cramps as he gains Howard Hughes-style nails.
Yeah, this is good because it's a good effect, but they are manky.
Yeah. I think this would have made a much better teaser, actually. They should have shortened the jibber-jabber and finished the teaser with that, but there we go.
Yes.
Metabolism in his hands have accelerated by a factor of 50, but then it settles down. Data detects a sphere of temporal disturbance, and it turns out they're surrounded by pockets of time disruption, a trail of which leads to where they're due to rendezvous with the Enterprise.
I have to say, I really like this. The graphic that they use and the way they explain it, it's kind of like being in an asteroid belt of little time pockets that might bugger everything
Again,
up.
they're using pictures to help us, aren't they?
Yeah, I like pictures. They kind of help me. That they're good.
When they finally catch up with the Enterprise, it appears to be being fired upon by a Romulan warbird. There's also a beam of energy emanating from the Enterprise's deflector dish. It's a nice effect of the ships being frozen in time, although it does look really odd on the Blu-ray in a way it isn't on the DVD. It's really strange. The Blu-ray, for just the rest of it's fine, but just this scene where they're frozen in time, it just looks like they're cardboard cutouts. It's very odd. In order to board the ships and discover what has happened, they make use of the emergency transporter armbands, last seen in Best of Both Worlds. Picard references Time's Arrow in talking about temporal fields. Annoyingly, Troy slightly faints when her armband is activated, though worse will happen to Picard later, so I suppose that's okay.
The thing is, though, at the time, I assumed it was because of the whole empathic thing, that it was shifted her ability to empathise.
But yeah, it's a bit sad it's the woman who faints, isn't it, really? But there we go. As I say, Picard gets far worse later on.
Yes, it does.
As they beam over, the Way team are able to move objects, but everything and everybody is frozen around them, and it does look really odd. I mean, obviously they've got people extras standing still and stuff, but it makes for a very odd-looking visual. On the bridge, Riker is lying prone with a Romulan standing over him, and several other Romulans are present. In sickbay, Dr. Crusher appears to be in the process of being shot in the stomach by another Romulan.
Oh, I don't know what it's like on the DVD, but on the Blu-ray, it's like really graphic and new.
It's same on DVD. It does look a very grisly image.
I guess it surprises me because I think of this really as mostly as next gen being mostly you, and occasionally maybe veering into PG.
Oh right, yeah, sanitised, I mean?
Yeah, so
this is actually There's no blood. But quite clearly her stomach is disintegrating.
It is. It's like, to call back to my own comments on much earlier seasons, Crusher is properly dead.
Yes. As Troy leaves, one of the Romulans moves. And it's Pat Tallman, everybody, again!
It is.
How many appearances can one woman make in a series?
I recognised her, though.
Yeah, you did. It's hard not to.
In a way, but she does make a good Romulan.
Yeah, she does. In the transporter room, Picard discovers injured Romulans being beamed aboard by Worf. Troy tells the captain that should they be able to restart time, there is no way that the Doctor will survive. And in engineering, they discover a warp core breach in progress. Data can see it expanding, so time is not completely frozen, it's just running very slowly. They discover the power transfer from the Enterprise to the Warbird was in progress, but somehow it sets off the breach. There's some nice visuals at this point.
Yeah. The visuals in this and the effects and the way they've done it, I think they're all awesome.
Unfortunately, this is rather similar to the next phase. Remember the Ro Geordie one, where everybody thinks they're dead, and they end up sort of out of phase on the Romulan Warbird. And there's a feedback from a power transfer in that one as well, which is going to be used to destroy the Enterprise. So it's a bit sort of deja vu-y, this episode. And I seem to remember when we watched the next phase, we were kind of thinking of this episode a bit as well. So Picard does his iconic drawing a face in the steam from the breach.
Temporal narcosis.
Yes, before freaking out due to his armband malfunctioning, and they beam back to the runabout. Having realised the risks they're taking in using the armbands, the team board the Romulan ship. And Face of the Enemy is referenced.
Which I like.
As apparently Troy somehow became an expert on Romulan ships during her brief tour of duty as a Tal Shiar imposter.
No, but she'd have picked up something. And what Picard said...
Quite how she found out about them using quantums of solace for their engines, I do not know. Because, she was never in the engine room, was she, for that episode? But anyway...
No, but it might have been mentioned as part of a briefing or
off
something.
Screen somewhere. Maybe.
No, it makes sense that there are some things she's going to understand just because.
But in that episode, she's pretty clueless, actually. She doesn't even know she's going to be on that mission. She's kidnapped on her way to a conference.
No, but then she gets briefed by the guy.
Yeah, but he doesn't go into details of the engines, for heaven's sake, because she doesn't need to know that. So it's all a bit bizarre, really. Anyway, there are lots of continuity references going on in this episode, aren't there? There's at least, 3 or 4 episodes referenced.
Yeah, something like that.
Which is nice in one sense for the ongoing fan, but ultimately isn't a good sign for people who may be coming to the show new. But obviously there's only one more season to go.
6, why would they?
Yeah, fair enough. And we do complain sometimes about the lack of continuity, so we can't,
Continuity is good.
Mm-hmm. The Warbird's engineering section, talking about continuity, is very reminiscent of that we saw in previous episodes, with similar designs and colour scheme, along with the distinctive TARDIS console that we've seen before. They discover the Romulan version of the warp core is indeed an artificial quantum of solace, or some such, which is full of what turn out to be alien babies trapped inside. Alien babies. No? Okay. Data's tricorder interferes with things somehow and restarts time or something as everybody starts moving forwards again. Then the Enterprise explodes, but then time goes backwards before freezing again.
But it looks awesome.
It does look good, yeah.
And Picard's face when he sees it.
Yeah, the Enterprise blowing up. Oh, not yet! My fish! Geordi realises there is an extra Romulan in the room who wasn't there before, who then grabs him, causing the engineer to collapse. Showing some quick thinking, Troy removes Geordie's armband, effectively freezing him to save him.
Yep, that's good. Yep.
The Romulan turns out to be an adult version of the aliens in the Quantum. He's played by somebody called Michael Bofsheva, who was previously seen in Deep Space Nine as Minister Turan, way back in Progress at the start of the season. Sounding a bit like Scaroff, Last of the Jaggeroff, I can't help feeling. A Doctor Who City of Death reference. This guy says that it's their young that are trapped in the artificial quantum, mistaking it for the real thing, aka a black hole. The Enterprise's power transfer was the cause of the temporal disturbances. He reveals the existence of Pat Tallman before disappearing. The gang decide to use the tricorder effect to reverse time before the power transfer took place to stop the Enterprise exploding, which is all a bit tricorders turning into being the blooming sonic screwdriver from Doctor Who for my liking, but never mind. They begin reversing time, but Pat Tallman attacks Data before he can stop the beam being activated, so Data has to place a containment field around the warp core to protect it. We see that the Romulan on the bridge was in the process of helping Riker up.
I like that.
Yeah, it's nice. As Picard gives the order for Geordi to be beamed aboard. We also discover that the Romulan sickbay was firing at Pat Tallman originally, who moved, hence Crusher getting in the way of the beam. Troy manages to yank the Doctor out of the way. Since they can't escape without breaking off the transfer beam, they remotely pilot the runabout into it, which is a nice solution.
I like that.
The warbird then disappears for no good reason. It's really weird, that bit. I don't understand why it disappears. There's no reason given.
Well, I think it's to do with the fact that it's got the quantum singularity that's causing all the problems.
Why would it disappear? I mean, it wouldn't have the aliens inside it, maybe, but it would still be there. I don't know. Very odd. There's a slightly cheesy scene at the end with Data watching a kettle boil.
Yeah.
But at least the design is reassuringly odd. It's not quite as odd as the teapot that Crusher has, but it's still slightly weird.
It looks to me like, as it's in the process of boiling, it ought to change colour like one of their mood things.
Yeah, glow blue or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the technical bits make chuff all sense, it has to be said, particularly all the magic tricorder stuff. And there are times when the story feels a wee bit derivative, especially of the next phase. But the character stuff makes up for that. Things move along at a good pace once the runabout rendezvous with the Enterprise. It's fun to see Troy taking quite a bit of initiative. The effects are really good. Picard freaking out is pretty good. So all in all, it's quite an entertaining episode. It's just technically it doesn't make sense at points to me, but there we are.
The whole time travel doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So personally, I'm not likely to criticise an episode involving time travel that doesn't make sense. It never occurred to me watching that to think of the next phase. I had totally and utterly 100% forgot this episode, with the exception of Picard making a smiley face.
Yes, that is the bit that sticks in the mind. It has to be
but I had, even though it's a bloody good episode, and therefore you'd expect me to remember it because it's good, it was like I was watching it for the first time. I didn't remember any of it other than the fucking smiley face. I remember sitting there thinking, this is a smiley face episode. I should know more than this. I don't know more than this. Why do I know? And it was awesome, but it was properly like watching it for the first time. I thought it was brilliant.
I think that's partly, as I say, because it does merge into other Romulan episodes, but, it's still a good story.
I really liked it, and I like the fact that you've got the Romulan helping them up, and it's...
Yep.
Their assumption is, the Romulans are firing, but...
Yeah, I think that's explained by the fact that that's them trying to stop the power transfer happening. I think that's why they fire, but that bit wasn't made completely clear to me either, but I think that's what's going on.
Or it could be the alien doing the firing, couldn't it?
Yes, yeah, somebody's trying to stop the power transfer happening, either the Romulans or the alien, but yeah.
It portrays the Romulans in a more balanced light.
Yeah, no, they're being helped out at this point, and therefore they're being sympathetic, yeah. And
you get to see Romulan ship and stuff, and it looks cool and it's interesting, and I didn't bloody remember it, so I liked it.
Cool. Well, let's find out what everybody else thinks.
I bet everybody else can remember it. Why did I forget it?
I don't know.
Did you forget it?
No, I didn't, but as I say, what had happened was some of the details of this merged into the next phase in my mind. So I was waiting for the Picard drawing the smiley face in the next phase, and when it didn't happen, it was like, oh, hang on a minute, that's another episode, isn't it? But anyway, we heard from Commander Shepard, and he said of this episode, Timescape is a cracking episode that shows some humanity to the crew and keeps you on the wrong foot till the end, which I think is a fair assessment. Yep.
Yeah, it's very good.
From Dominica, good start, good pace, and several unexpected twists. The scientific talk was a little too hard, and I gave up trying to understand the strange aliens. But I still think it was interesting to follow. 4 main characters were given different tasks, and I did not feel that anyone was more important to the story. It was really interesting to see how an image can mean different things if you know what lies behind. For example, it first looked like the Doctor would be killed intentionally. It turns out that it was meant for someone else. In closing, I like this. Bye! Yes, we like this too.
We do. Which is a good point about how if it's just an image with no context, it's really easy to misinterpret.
Indeed, yes. We also heard from the Mark on this one.
And the Mark writes, Timescape or wibbly wobbly timey wimey.
Oh, I hate that phrase.
I have seen this one countless times due to being on tape with the first half of the next 2-parter.
Yep.
So, returning from a conference where no one got kidnapped, or did and got returned no big deal, Picard, Data, Geordi and Troy attempt to rendezvous with the Enterprise. But before they do, they discover strange things happening in the space-time continuum. Timescape takes the idea of time travel to an interesting next step by having space-time shattered into multiple levels of backward-forward, accelerated and decelerated. This is one of the few good Brannon Braga episodes. See also Cause and Effect. The truth of Timescape is all in the details. Like the most entertaining of TNG tech adventures, this story knows that to keep us engaged it can't shy away from some fairly involved details that clearly explain what's going on. But at the same time it has to walk a fine line so it doesn't drown in pure exposition. Data is always perfect for the task, and as in the scene where he explains, the Enterprise isn't actually frozen in time but moving forward extremely slowly. Apart from tech details, some zany humour sure doesn't hurt. Qualifying a classic moment in my book is when Picard, experiencing a moment of temporal psychosis, draws a smiley face in the gas cloud of the warp core explosion and then laughs maniacally. This one does have a real-life inspired theme. Troy at the beginning of the episode and Data at the end make a connection between the time distortions and the human experience of time seeming to slow down or stop or speed up depending on one's own experience. And some of the episode's impact does come from those moments. The uncanny, creepy scenes aboard the ship, in which the Enterprise's destruction and Beverly's death and so on come down to slowly mounting disaster that the episode's central characters feel helpless to avert. The only major plot hole, but it is a big one, is why the Romulans had disruptors on them in the Enterprise, especially in sickbay. One would expect better security, even during a mission of mercy. Security seemed tight in the transporter room.
Yeah, no, that does seem odd that they've been, it's an errand of mercy. They're being rescued, being beamed aboard, and they come across with phasers. Seems a bit bad, doesn't it?
And aren't they automatically disarmed and shit anyway?
Yeah, and you've got Worf, for heaven's sake, operating the transporter beam as well. And there's another security ensign with a phaser pointed at the Romulans as they're boarding. So, yes, you would expect them to be disarmed.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, good point.
Good point.
Let's find out what Mr. Wayne Peters makes of this one.
Hello, Orgs. Wayne and Merlin back to talk about the Next Generation episode. Timescape, was it called? Much preferred this one. Much more entertaining than Second Chances. A nice science mystery to try and solve. And I love the idea that things aren't as they first appear. You know, the Romulans not really shooting Bev. They're not really shooting at the Enterprise. It's a big old rescue mission. So that was nice. I like the idea of beasties that live inside the singularity and sort of decide to take up and build a nest in the Romulan warp core. Although I found the fact that the Romulans keep their warp core in a little cupboard a little bit disconcerting. But I guess that's budget restrictions for you. Love the idea of the pockets of temporal distortion. I love the way the whole start where characters just kept phasing out. The idea that there was a pocket inside the ship and Picard's hand sort of aged a few days and, things like that. It was just this... I like episodes that do that. They set up these odd events that make you kind of ask, what the hell is going on? And then the characters have to kind of work it out. That's always fun. And it's just a great episode. It's just a really good episode. It's one of my favourites, actually. Not much else to say about it other than that. I really enjoyed it. It was a great episode. So we'll be back next time. I think Merlin's off frolicking and gambling in the trees there. So I'll say goodbye for him. We'll be back next time to discuss, I assume, Next Gen and DS9 episode as per usual. So we'll talk to you then. Bye now.
Bye. I hope Merlin enjoyed his frolic. Can't beat a good frolic, I always say. Yes, the fact that Quantum was kept in a cupboard was kind of amusing. Not the most imaginative of a design work, it has to be said, but there we go.
That might have been a better title for a Bond film, though. Quantum of Cupboards.
Quantum of Cupboards. And the fact that things aren't what they seem initially, it looks like a Romulan attack and it's all set up that way, but then everything's explained is quite nice as well. Yep, definitely good. Let's find out what Cat Bus Matt made of this episode.
Hello, lovely and delightful Orgses. It's Cat Bus Matt here with some feedback for Timescape. Now, this is more like it, much like Second Chances. I don't remember this at all from broadcast, apart from that enduring image, as Peter and I discussed when we last saw each other, that enduring image of the smiley face in the warp core explosion. Incidentally, pretty sure that that's been censored. I'm pretty sure that Picard drew a cock, because you would, wouldn't you? Everybody draws a cock. That's just what happens, especially if you're that high or whatever he is. So let's have a look at the episode. Love the scene at the beginning in the runabout. Love the relaxed atmosphere and everyone cracking jokes. Cringed a little at Marina Sirtis' Irish accent. Clearly, the universal translator assigns accents to people now, so all people from wherever that doctor's supposedly from are apparently really badly Irish. It's worse than David Boreanaz in Angel, isn't it? It's really, really bad. But the scene itself is quite funny. Her dialogue is actually quite funny. And the fact that they can all sit around together. I mean, you get a lot of this with Riker and the rest of the crew because they have their poker nights and things, but you get very few scenes with Picard and the rest of the crew sort of sitting around and chatting informally. You know, he's doing impressions as well. And I like the little touches like him getting up sort of wordlessly and just fetching more tea for him and Geordi, you know, and it really, really is informal, you know, and of course poor old Data sort of comedically not understanding everything, as usual. If I do have, criticism for this episode, maybe it's that in scenes like this, you know, Data's being wheeled out as comic relief, which is a bit of lazy writing to my mind, but there we go. But it's a minor quibble at best. Then we get into the meat of the episode, and what a cracking mystery. Now, again, I didn't remember any of this. So, for me, the mystery really was unfolding almost all over again. I had a vague inkling that it would turn out that the Romulans weren't the villains they were supposed to be. But I like the way that turns out to be the case. I like how everything kind of slots into place. Mind you, how bad a shot is that Romulan in sickbay? Oh, I was shooting an alien that was here, but Crusher got in the way. That's point blank range. Like, how shit a shot are you? Explain to me how that happened. Seriously, because if time had frozen, then the beam wouldn't have hit her. So if time had frozen and the faux Romulan, Patricia Tallman, by the way, Patricia Tallman is a Romulan. But yeah, if time had frozen, so she'd stepped out of the way, the beam wouldn't have hit Crusher yet. So, you know, because time would have sped up again. And do you get it? So I don't know what happened there. I don't know. Bit of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, I guess. But yes, what else do I like? I like how the mystery unfolds. I like the sort of reveal. Everyone seems to stop caring about Geordi the second he's frozen in time. Like, you'd think at the very least Troy, who's been known to cry when they run out of chocolate, would at least, you know, have a wobbly bottom lip or something. Maybe she's too busy swooning unconvincingly to think about Geordi. But, so that was a bit odd. Like, no, even like Data, who is apparently emotionless, usually will express concern over Geordi, who's his best friend. But yeah, you could argue they're Starfleet officers and they're getting on with it, but no, I'm sorry. They just watched Comrade almost killed. Also, like, Picard barely gets a reaction. I mean, I'll excuse Picard, but Picard barely gets a reaction to the fact that Crusher's basically carked it, which you'd think he'd look more than a bit concerned at. But there we are. But yeah, lovely to see Pat Tallman, albeit uncredited, as a Romulan. And she at least gets a line. Well, a faux Romulan, I should say. But she, as I say, she looks lovely in that makeup. And and Riker at the beginning, it's like, we've got a distress call from the Romulans. Now, he's the commander, the second in command of a starship. His first thought shouldn't be, well, when's the captain coming back? Because I don't think I can make that decision on my own. Oh no, he's coming back in like loads and loads of days. Oh no, I'll have to deal with it myself. Okay, well, let's go and rescue him then. Yeah, it's a little bit. I'm supposed to believe that this man can take over command of the Enterprise in Picard's absence, and the fact that he's like, his first thought is, when's the captain back? Because there's a big decision, is kind of irritating. But overall, really, really great episode. Loved it to bits. So hopefully, the descent is equally as good. Anyway, as ever, keep up the good work, and I will catch you guys very soon. Love you, bye! I really can't sign off anything without doing that, can I?
Love you, bye! Strange man. Yes.
Yeah, you spotted, like me, that Riker's first response is,
when's
the captain
Where's the
coming
boss?
back?
Yeah, Pat Tallman does make a very nice Romulan, definitely. Yeah, I think that's Troy doing a being in command thing, actually. And it's interesting, of course, next season she'll take that command exam. So I think this is kind of a sign that, I say, as soon as she got that uniform, she suddenly became a lot more professional, to be honest.
Yeah, that's Jellicoe's influence.
Yes. The thing with Crusher being shot I took it that the alien was standing in front of her. The aliens aren't frozen in time. They can move around, as we can see.
Yeah.
So what happened was that the alien moved, and of course, because the alien moved, the beam then hit Crusher instead. Yeah, nice seeing Picard in an informal scene with the crew as well. We only really get those up till now with him and Crusher with their breakfast scenes. So.
Or earlier, him and Wesley.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Sorry.
I forgot about him.
Sorry.
And as for everybody having drawn a cock in the steam, obviously I would have drawn a TIE fighter, because that's what I doodle. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now we've got a first-time feedbacker now.
Oh.
It's a bit surreal, because it turns out to be our cat.
The same cat who was failing to get through curtains.
Yes, whilst we were attempting to watch Second Chances, he was attempting to find the gap in the curtains to see it on the window ledge and failing terribly.
And then did what all cats do, which is pretended that's not what he wanted at all, and just went and curled up on his bed.
So what has the cat got to say?
Greetings, puny pinkskins. It is I, your lord and master, Dax the cat. Until now I have remained silent, allowing you to conduct your silly little podcast unmolested. But now I must interject, for there has been a grave injustice to feline kind, and I must speak up. I have been speaking to Spot the cat, following his little turn in the last episode. And let me tell you, it's more than the comedic scene that has been played out for the amusement of you pinkskins. Oh yes, let's all laugh at the Riker with the little gash in his head because he can't feed a cat. Well, Spot tells me a very different tale. A tale that involves Riker, a jar of peanut butter, and some unrealistic expectations. So, while you're all busy laughing at the bearded pinkskin and his silly little cat, just remember, he did it to himself, and there's a very good reason why he can't sit on chairs properly. Daximus out!
If ever the phrase too much information was going to come into play.
Yeah.
Okay.
But does this have anything to do with Spot's sex change?
Yes, let's not dwell on that. In fact, he becomes a she. Okay. Let's find out what Drew and Tracy made of this episode.
Hello, here's our feedback for Star Trek Next Generation episode Timescape. I quite enjoyed that. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's
really
brilliant.
liked that.
Loved it.
Yeah.
I like the teaser. It was like even like the Twilight Zone.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like what the hell's going on here?
Yes, exactly. What I would ask though is why, when Troy zoned out for 3 minutes and 11 seconds, when she came back and they were all kind of buzzing around her, why the fucking hell was Geordie buzzing her tits?
He was scanning the breast.
You're not going to scan anything from there, love. You need to get your noggin in. So at one point we thought Picard was turning into the American Werewolf in London with them fingernails going on.
Yeah.
You know, a woman will be proud to have them nails. They're all
Yes.
manicured and coiffed quite nicely. You know, and then where did they go to? What happened when like they scanned him and they said, oh, you know, you got your molecular structures or something like
Going
he's
at 50
aging.
times, yeah.
What happened? All of a sudden it just went back to normal.
I think Data gave him a nice manicure.
So for me, this was a really good episode. There was lots going on. This was a right Picard episode. Not too much of Riker. Not that I don't like Riker.
As opposed to the last time we just watched.
As opposed, yes, you know, and we was quite laughing, sort of saying, "Oh, is Riker going to get into trouble letting all these Romulans on board and stuff like that?"
Yes, when he said, "Why are they beaming over Romulans in an attack?"
Exactly.
He was in trouble, wasn't he?
You're gonna get it. But then actually, it turned out that he wasn't in the wrong.
I know.
Riker would never have done it. We knew that, to be sure. So Riker, the man of no fear, except when it comes to a ginger cat called Spot.
Yeah.
Love it.
We love Spot stuff.
We do love it.
When they beamed over to the Romulan ship, the engine room, and Geordie just opens the door on that artificial singularity, I was like, hold on a minute. Surely it wouldn't be that easy to just open the door to that. Because that'd be like, that's like a black hole.
Exactly. And would there
so someone go, have we got any more beans? Oh, let's just check this cupboard here.
Would that cupboard not have some kind of warning? Do not open on fear of life or something?
You should not be able to open a cupboard that's got an artificial singularity in it that easy.
Well, exactly. So Data, generally full of logic, love it. But why does he always have to dispel the rules that, like your nan taught you? Don't watch a pot You know,
I've
watched Pot Never Boils.
Was rubbish.
Really?
It's
almost
obvious. Spoilt the episode having that ending on. That was just absolute rubbish.
Yeah, just leave it there. Leave it there, Data. Leave it. So really good to see Lita Alexander from Babylon 5 in the episode as the evil lady Romulan.
You recognised her immediately.
As soon as I saw her, I was like, I know that woman. Yeah, good to see her.
I loved this episode. I thought it was brilliant. I really
very good. Lots
enjoyed
going on.
it.
Lots going on.
It's great.
Lots
totally
of good happening.
Excellent.
Yeah. Lots of Geordie in there. There was no Geordie in like the last episode that we watched. And it's like you need him. And it was like when they're on the shuttle, you couldn't think of 4 better people to kind of be on a shuttle with, really, could you? You know, Data and Geordie just going off to be like, Data, let's go and, you know, look at some calibrations. Excellent. Loved it. It was a really good episode.
Excellent
Liked it.
episode.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
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 I totally get what you're saying about Data and the whole, you know, things your nan say. Right, they don't have kettles. They have replicators.
Yes.
Why would he know?
You know what a kettle was.
Yeah,
yes.
and the
it does
doesn't
seem really
make
odd.
any sense.
And it is as you're right, it's a very weak ending. It has to be said. It's unfortunate because the rest of the story is really good.
It is, but
As for scanning Troy's breasts, who wouldn't? And there's the Twilight Zone feel about it. Yes, I quite like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Jolly good.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Indeed. Let's find out what Mr. Purry made of it.
Hello again, Purry here to talk about Timescape. This episode I remember quite well, mainly because a friend of mine bought it on the video because it was the first one of the two-parter that's coming up, and they really wanted the two-parter for reasons. And actually, I really enjoyed it, and rewatching it, I really liked it. I thought it was very well done. So the concept is, of course, I think the science in it is probably bobbins. It's definitely stretching the science fiction idea of pockets of time. It probably doesn't really work in any sort of known physics, but as a sci-fi conceit, it's actually done quite well, and indeed I like the way the episode unfolds. When you look at it, you don't have any sort of, the main plot effectively doesn't really kick in until a good maybe third of the way through, but the stuff in the runabout is actually really well done. I like to think that they made it to the boring conference and back because the Romulan ship that the Enterprise was helping, it had an engine failure, but that was the one that was going to go and abduct them when they went to the conference. So that's why for once they actually made it to the conference without incident, if not from obviously running into the time pockets. And I thought that was actually done rather well. It's nice of them to use the runabout set as well. I wasn't quite sure of the internal dimensions, but it does sort of work in what my head and what I've seen in specs of the sort of interchangeable middle module. But I'm sure you'll talk more about runabout specs in the podcast. I know everyone loves that sort of thing. But yes, I like the way it kind of builds, and indeed it's quite creepy at the start when you see things like the fruit and obviously Picard's fingernails growing. You get a set of nail clippers damn quickly on that though, and the warp nacelle breaking down, and the idea of having to navigate slowly, and then the actual shot of the Warbird and Enterprise kind of caught mid sort of incident is actually really well done. And again, the whole thing of them walking around the ship with everyone really, really trying hard to stay still. I should have actually mentioned in Second Chances they did the William and the two Rikers really well. It was almost seamless, or at least it was in my slightly blurry old standard def edition. I don't know how that scaled up. In this, the problem is that yes, you can quite often see extras rocking or breathing, and I really felt for the extras in this because the poor buggers had to be standing around for ages, just standing still in the one pose, desperately trying not to move because you're frozen in time. And I did feel for them for that because, they did a good job. It's maybe, like I say, you can see the faults in it, but I think that's one where you have to suspend your belief and say it's just a show. They are actors, and they're just people standing still for all they're meant to be frozen in time. But I thought that was actually really effective. The walking around the frozen Enterprise and later on the frozen Romulan ship are done really well. Those scenes are, again, and it's quite sinister and creepy when they keep coming across these stationary people. I suppose it's like when you walk through like a tourist attraction and they've surprised you by putting weird waxwork people in a corner. It's a bit like that, and that unnerves me. It freaks my wife out, something chronic. And so, yeah, I actually just thought it was really effectively done. And yeah, as I say, for all that I'm sure the plot doesn't stand up to any real scrutiny, it sort of unfolded in an interesting way, and like I say, gave you a lot of really good visuals. I mean, the Enterprise mid-damage on the outside, the sort of damage in the hull was really well done. There's the warp core breach breach even with the happy face on it. I don't know how he drew the happy face on it. That bit doesn't make sense, but just go with it. And similarly, the Beverly half vaporized, although the Romulan said he was attacking the other creature, the female one, and he missed and hit Beverly. How bad a shot is he? Because that creature was like standing, it wasn't even standing next to Beverly. He must be like either the worst shot or really the worst at making excuses for just wanting to shoot a doctor. But overall I thought the episode ran at a decent pace. It was interesting and just generally actually quite a good one. It's one I'd definitely pick out and watch again. It's one that I quite often forget about because it's so often overshadowed by the two-parter that follows it, but actually I thought very well done in this one. So definitely an episode I enjoyed. So I will just, goes for me to say, do keep up the good work. It's a very good podcast which I'm still enjoying, and I hope everyone, I think I said this at the beginning, but I hope everyone out there had a happy new year, and look forward to more feedback in 2015, and I shall hopefully feedback for the next two. Until then, bye for now.
Bye. It's interesting what you say about the runabout, because the whole time I was watching them moving around in the runabout, it was like, okay, they come through this door and then totally unnecessarily walk around an arch thing when they could walk straight forward. And it really bugged me the entire time. But you pointed out that later, that's where the transporter's going to be.
Yeah, well, it is here as well. It's where the transporter thing is, so that they're purposely not stepping onto the transformer pad,
but
which
you can't
is sat
see
right
there.
In the middle of the cockpit, weirdly. But yeah.
But you can't see that, and it does seem bloody odd the way they move.
What
around
does work is the fact they've built that conference room set with the windows in the same place that the windows are in the model, so that's quite clever.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not bad.
In terms of the extras moving, yes, I noticed it, but actually the point at which I noticed it the first time, I mean, you may have noticed it sooner, but the point at which I first noticed it was in engineering. Just shortly before, Data said time is actually moving. At which point I then said, well, then the extras would. Yeah,
there are other scenes where you do see the occasional wobble, but I'm completely with Puri. I just feel for the extras having to stand still for so long, so but that's fair enough.
The only time it was, for me, really obvious was one particular person in engineering, and it was immediately followed up by this explanation that time is actually moving, and for me, that was enough for me to continue to suspend my disbelief.
The business with the Romulan being a really bad shot, I think the theory goes that Pat Tolman Romulan had moved.
Yeah.
And then when Troy came in the room, she froze again. But obviously she's frozen in a different position to how she was before. I think is the theory.
I think that's the idea, that she was in front, and when the guy shooting could see.
And I love the idea the Romulans were on their way to abduct the runabout crew.
Yes. Or maybe even just Geordie.
Yeah, just picked him out. Yeah.
Because Geordie was there, so, that's what they got to do. Because that's what Romulans are about. And that was their mission. I love that idea.
So, there's been a few references to the two-parter that's coming up, so I suppose we better move on to what we're covering next time. We'll be recording on Thursday the 22nd of January, and we'll be covering the Deep Space Nine episode, right at the end of the first season, In the Hands of the Prophets, which is kind of a part one, but it's a part one of I think about a 4-part arc, basically.
Does it involve an orb?
Can't remember.
Okay.
All I remember is the last part's pretty good.
Is it?
And it involves a sort of Civil War-y thing going on with the Bajorans, but that's all I remember.
Okay.
And it's not like a traditional two-parter. It's a sort of ongoing story over several episodes. But anyway, we shall find out.
Yeah, am I doing that?
You will be doing In the Hands of the Prophets, because it's been a while since you've done a Deep Space Nine episode.
Yeah.
And I shall be covering Descent Part 1, which everybody seems to think is fantastic. I don't remember it being that way myself.
My memory, is that Descent Part 1 is.
Oh, right, it's Descent Part 2. Well, that's quite often the way. We shall see.
Yes.
Thank you to everybody who's fed back.
Thank you.
Especially the cat. That was a bit of a surprise.
Yes. Yes, obviously, when you're not failing
to get through curtains, you're managing to record MP3 feedback. Wow.
Is there a microphone hidden in our bed?
Oh, God, I hope not.